Warm greetings to all. I am Lieutenant M.Gayathri, Assistant Professor of English, DKM College for Women, Autonomous Vellore. In this lecture, I am going to discuss about the short story Chameleon, written by Anton Chekhov. My lecture is structured. First, I'll tell you about the short story Chameleon, what is short story, and about the author, and I'll sum up the stories. And in the last, I'll be discussing about the elements of a short story. So let's get started. So what is short story? A short story is a brief fictional prose narrative. It is shorter than a novel and it deals with a very few characters, and it is concerned with a single effect conveyed in only one very few significant incidents which can be read in a single sitting. So when we take this short story that we are going to discuss, Chameleon, this short story is just 4 pages. It can be read in a single sitting, and we have a very few characters, say around 5 to 6 characters in this short story. So with that small intro, I will tell you about the short story Chameleon. So Chameleon was first published in the year 1884 in the journal Sharps, and later this story was included in the collection titled Colored Stories. So this story expresses about a deep truth about human behavior in a detailed setting, and it's all about a police superintendent Ochmiller who changes his mind according to the situation. And this short story was written by a very famous Russian short story writer called Anton Chekhov. So Anton Chekhov is a Russian writer, as I said earlier, is a Russian playwright and a short story writer. He has written more than 400 short stories, and he has produced 4 classical plays, and his short stories are held in high esteem by the readers, writers and critics. He is considered to be one of the greatest short fiction writer in the history of English literature. With that short intro, I'll introduce you to the characters in the short story Chameleon. In the Chameleon, we have around 5 characters, as I said earlier. Ochmiller is the police superintendent, and Eldrin is the policeman who assists Ochmiller, and Rukin is a goldsmith, and Mitrich is a woodcutter, and General Ziegler is a very famous personality in Russia, and this person is not present in the story, but he has been referred frequently in the short story. And at last we have a general's cook called Poher. So that's all about the character. Now I'll give you a short summary of the short story Chameleon. So Chameleon, as the story opens, we could see the police superintendent Ochmiller and his assistant Eldrin are walking through the market square. Suddenly they hear a scream and dog screaming. They see a man in a cotton untouched shirt and unbuttoned waist chasing a dog. The man managed to catch the dog, grab the dog by its hind legs. The noise attracted crowd's attention and the people gathered around them. So Ochmiller, who's going around the market square, wanted to find out what is wrong in the place. He goes there and he discovers that the man called Rukin was bitten by a dog, and he is a goldsmith, and his forefinger has been bitten by the dog. He claims that a report should be drawn and the dog should be killed immediately. The Ochmiller began to find out who is the owner of a dog, and he also plans to destroy the animal. When they were discussing about this incident, someone from the crowd said that the dog belonged to a general. General is a higher official in the armed force in Russia. As I told you, this writer is from Russia, and story is set in a Russian. So we have Russian names, and in Russia, general is a higher official in the armed forces. So this police superintendent, when he hears that the dog belongs to a general, he immediately changes his attitude. At first he wanted to kill the animal. Later, look how he changes his attitude. He says, he started blaming Yuki, saying, there is one thing I can't make out, how it came to bite you. Surely it couldn't reach your finger. It's a little dog and you're a great hulking fellow. You must have scratched your finger with a nail and then the idea struck you to get damages for it. We all know your sort, I know you devils. So he started blaming Yukin for the incident and is now in the favor of the dog, since the dog belongs to a higher official in the armed forces. And again, someone from the onlooker told Ochmelo that the dog is not general's. So when he gets this information, again we could see how his attitude changes. Here, after hearing this, he says that the general dogs are expensive and this is goodness knows what, no coat, no shape and a low creature. So this dog cannot be a general's dog because this looks very low. So his dogs are very expensive. So according to the situation, he keeps changing his attitude. So when someone from the crowd said it's not generals, he asked the rookie to go ahead and kill the dog to do whatever he wants. So when they were discussing this incident, again someone from the crowd said the animal is still general's. So the police superintendent is little confused and he asked his assistant Eldrin to find out the owner of the dog. So suddenly when they were discussing, general's cook passes by and he tells that the animal is not general's, the dog is not general's. So we could see again Ochmelo changing his attitude. He says that he wants the dog to be exterminated immediately. He wants the dog to killed immediately. But then Pohor, the general's cook, continues says it's not general's dog, but it is the general's brother's dog. So this person, general's brother, is Ochmelo's friend, and he is frightened after hearing this, and he started treating the animal with affection, and he asked the cook to take the dog with him. So after warning Rookie, wrapping himself in his coat, he continued his journey through the market square, and the people gathered there were laughing at the Rookie. So with that we come to the end of a story. Here what we could see is that Ochmelo, the police superintendent, he keeps changing his attitude depending upon the situation. So he has been compared with a chameleon. What is chameleon? Chameleon is a species that changes its color according to the situation. Here in the story, the attitude of a police superintendent, Ochmelo, is compared with a chameleon. He changes his attitude depending upon the situation. And coming to the elements of the short story has 5 elements. They are setting, character, conflict, plot and the theme. So when we come to the setting is the place when and where the story takes place. Here the story is taking place in a market square. Then we have a character. As I told you earlier, in general short story has a very few characters. In this short story Chameleon, we have only 5 to 6 characters. And the conflict is the clashes between 2 forces, and in short story it has been classified into 4 types: conflict within oneself, conflict with others, conflict with the environment, conflict with the supernatural. So these are the 4 classification of conflicts. In the short story we could see the conflict between person versus person. The man called Rukin is in problem with the dog. He has been bitten by a dog and he wants a report to be drawn against the owner of the dog, and he wants the dog to be killed. And again we have one more conflict, person versus society. So there were a crowd of people who have gathered around when Rukin was bitten by a dog, and they were giving their opinions, and they were trying to find out whose mistake was it. Is it Rukin's or is it dogs? So we could see the people giving their opinions. So here people could be taken as a society. So conflict between person and a society. So we have discussed about setting and character conflict. Next I move on to the plot. So what is plot? Plot is a sequence of events in a story which gives a complete sense. So in plot, in general, we have a exposition, rising action, climax, falling action and resolution. So what is exposition? Exposition is the beginning of a story where characters, settings are introduced. So here in the short story Chameleon, in the beginning, we have been introduced to the characters. We have been introduced to the police superintendent Archmela, then his assistant Eldrin, and a person who was bitten by a dog, and his name is Rukin. So that's the exposition. And rising action. What is rising action? A rising action is when main character faces a series of conflicts. So here the main character is Rukin. He has been in conflict. He has been bitten by a dog, and there has been lot of confusion over that situation. That is the rising action. And the climax. Climax is the most interesting part of the story. So here the climax in the story, short story, is they go around asking people who's the owner of a dog. Does it belongs to general or not? That is the climax of this story. And falling action. So what is falling action? The events leading to the end of a story is called falling action. So here in the story, so what is the falling action is General's cook comes and declares that the dog is not general's but general's brothers. So resolution is the end of the story. The end of the story is when they discovered it's the general's brother's dog, and they let out the dog to be free, taken out free, and they didn't claim any compensation, and they didn't kill the dog. And everybody were laughing at the Rukin. And the theme of this short story, theme is the author's message to the society. The theme in the story Chameleon is that people change their behavior to suit their own needs regardless of how it affects others. So in society, this theme is even relevant today in today's situation. This short story has been written in 1884. So after so many years also, this theme has been very relevant. Even today in society, we could see people changing their opinion frequently according to their own needs regardless of others. So with that, I come to the end of my lecture. Thank you.